From the people who brought you this video.
Honestly, it's right over me head a second. Fuck me backwards.
Or that video.
I find myself really interested in Mexican weather lately. I don't know what it is. Oh, fuck me dead. It's good just to learn about other cultures.
There comes a new blockbuster. Weather.
Yeah, kind of an unnecessary intro into the topic, but climate is basically the weather that is recorded for at least over 30 years of time. Let's say that for over 30 years out of 365 days of the year, it rains 310 days. That means your climate is...
Why the fuck am I still living here?
Now, if your cocaine addiction hasn't already started in 8th grade, you might have heard that the world has many different climate zones. And what each zone means is that the weather there has stayed more or less the same for a minimum of over 30 years, depending on the season. If it was fucking hot there in summer 30 years ago, it will also be hot there in summer this year. Of course, weather also includes humidity, wind, rainfall, and more besides temperature. So now, what does climate change mean? Climate change means that the average weather of the last decades is changing. For example, if my last 30 summers usually had an average temperature of, say, 28 degrees Celsius, and suddenly, in the next 10 years after that, I give my body a nice caramel color at an average temperature of 30 degrees Celsius, I got myself a climate change, and probably a good sunburn too. But alright, let's be more practical here. Let's exchange climate with my weight. If for the last 30 years I was a fit guy at 75 kilograms, people would call me the showstopper, the pussy magnet, the master milk machine. And now, at 40, I weigh 110 kilos and women at bars only talk to me because I'm in their way. I got myself a body change. I mean, of course, not like the one that Bruce Jenner got, but I turned from a summer morning breeze into a public transport sweat competition. Now that is climate change. Now, you might be wondering why the climate would change suddenly. What could be the reasons for that? I tell you, it is not because you walked into the room, Brad. It is absolutely not because of that. I mean, look at him. How the fuck is that possible? Well, first of all, it is important to know what the greenhouse effect is. I want to emphasize that I did not say chillhouse effect. Whereas the chillhouse effect is crushing a bong and getting some mad munchies, the greenhouse effect is this. This is the Earth, the place where we live and the place where some people like to get peed on for orgasm. Oh, and for all the kids watching this, Earth. The place where Santa Claus definitely doesn't exist. The Earth has an atmosphere, which is like a skin that allows us to breathe and live. Without it, we would be lifeless, like the moon or Jeffrey Epstein. Now, the Earth gets heated by sunlight. Some sunlight that reaches the Earth is being reflected into space. But the rest stays on Earth because it is absorbed by our atmosphere. This allows the Earth to warm enough for life. So again, sunlight reaches the Earth and stays here because of the atmosphere. The atmosphere consists of many different elements, and only some of those are important for absorbing sunlight. 4 of them are carbon dioxide, short CO2, methane, nitrous oxide, and chlorofluorocarbons, short CFCs. It is these last 4 elements that are being influenced by human beings. Thanks to the Industrial Revolution, there are much more of these elements in our atmosphere, and therefore more sunlight is being absorbed and the temperature on Earth is increasing. But how did these elements like CO2 become more in our atmosphere? Well, carbon dioxide is generated when we breathe. Yeah, that's right, all of you jogging and exercising motherfuckers. You breathe too much. Be more like Harold. He doesn't breathe shit. He's already out of breath when reaching the 2nd floor. But the overall main contributor of CO2 in our atmosphere is the burning of fossil fuels and deforestation. Methane, on the other hand, is produced thanks to rice cultivation and livestock, like farting cows. Come on, grow up, cows, it's not funny anymore. The little element called nitrous oxide increases reactivities like fossil fuel combustion and the use of fertilizers. CFCs are still being produced in some industries, but fortunately banned in many countries due to their impact on the ozone layer, which is another topic that I don't want to get into right now. Yes. Is climate change real? Yes, climate change is real. How do we know? The average temperature on Earth has risen by 0.9 degrees Celsius since the late 19th century. The temperature of the top 700 meters of the ocean have risen by 0.2 degrees Celsius. Data shows that Greenland and Antarctica have lost 423 billion tons of ice per year from 1993 to 2016. 5 of the ever recorded hottest years on Earth have been recorded since 2010. Of course, not counting the year when Magic Mike came out, because that was definitely the hottest year ever. So there's definitely some evidence for the rising temperature. On top of that, in the 5th assessment report, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change concluded that there's a 95% probability that humans are responsible for it. And that panel, my friends, consists of 1,300 independent experts from all over the world. So is it real in the sense that literally thousands of people who dedicate their lives to study the climate agree that it is changing? Yes, but is it real in the sense that your friend Brandon saw a Facebook post that said climate change was a hoax? No. Now, if you still don't believe that climate change is real, I want you to answer the following question. Let's imagine the world decides to create a panel of 1,300 doctors from all over the world to look at your stomach pain. Bad news, my friend, they found out that you have a tumor. And I'm not talking about the family-sized pizza that you just had. I'm talking about a proper tumor. Now let's imagine that all of the doctors with decades of studying cancer conclude that the main reason for your growing tumor is watching too many episodes of The Bachelor. Would you still be like, nah, I don't need to worry about watching too much The Bachelor? There's this one guy, Jeff, at work who told me that he doesn't think I have it. You wouldn't, would you? You would believe in these doctors and you would stop watching The Bachelor. So why on fucking earth won't you believe in climate change? Even though the increase in temperatures of 0.9 degrees Celsius seems little, the effect it has is huge. As it is getting warmer, the oceans will expand. The melting ice caps are not really helping with that. Many of the major cities in the world lie on the coasts. A majority of the world's trade happens between port cities. These are the cities that will be heavily affected by the rise of the sea levels and flooded. There will be more extreme weather conditions. Even very low temperatures will occur in places where they never happened before. We will see more hurricanes and tornadoes. This will cause floods and worsen the water quality and the overall availability of water resources. Especially developing countries might not be prepared for the changes in the environment, and floods, natural catastrophes, and shortages of food supply will make billions of people migrate to other countries. So if you are watching this and thinking,
I don't want any refugees,
then you should definitely do something against climate change, you selfish piece of. Of course, the cost that all this implies will be huge. Money that you will eventually have to pay with your taxes. Money that could be spent elsewhere. For example, getting everybody new sex toys. That would be great, wouldn't it? Oh yeah, and apart from that, it is not just us humans that will be affected by it. A huge amount of animal species will be much closer to extinction and many plants will stop existing. You want to see more of this? Isn't that cute, my child? Well, they are all dead now, thanks to mommy and daddy not giving a shit about the climate. Scientists, real scientists, have predicted that a rise of temperature of 2 degrees Celsius will cause catastrophic problems for the planet. So yeah, it is not too late to prevent it yet. Well, I have created a whole YouTube channel in order to find out what I can do about climate change. So putting all of it into one video will not be possible. In general, what we can do is reduce our carbon emissions. Because the CO2 that I have mentioned in the beginning of the video is the #1 reason for increasing temperatures. There are so many ways to do that. I will explain them in other videos, more specifically. However, using less emission-intensive transportation or eating less meat and animal products already helps a lot. Overall, I think everybody should just be much more aware of the problem and think about their consumption habits, especially the consumption of physical products, because manufacturing makes up a huge amount of today's emissions. When it comes to politics, you can also put people in power that understand the problem and plan to do something, and even more than others, about it. Listen guys, I am by no means an expert in the field. I'm not a geologist, I'm not a biologist, I barely know what CO2 means. I had to look up all the information that I just gave you. Now you might think,
if this guy isn't the real deal, why should I believe him?
I'm not saying that you have to believe me. Actually, please don't believe me. And if you don't believe me, tell me why. But careful here. I don't want you to just look for evidence against the points that I made. I also want you to look at what climate change and human-induced climate change especially means. Most of the information that I read, I found on NASA's website. And to be honest, I believed them. I believed them even if I never participated in a climate change study. The reason why I believed them, or science in general, is the same reason why I go to a doctor when I'm sick. Doctors have studied that shit for most of their lives. They have put tens of thousands of hours into learning about the human body. And so have the scientists that determine the cause and the danger of climate change. So who am I to not believe them? Especially if the majority of them agree on the issue. Let's be clear here. I'm not saying that everything that is being done to prevent climate change is great and the right thing to do. I'm not saying that. All I'm saying is that from what I've read, the problem cannot be denied. It will affect us all. Of course, if you don't die before that. But the generations that you leave behind will suffer from this. If you like it or not, they will suffer. I think it is just in our best self-interest to prevent the climate crisis. In my next videos, I will talk about ways to reduce our carbon emissions. I will also make a whole video about arguments against climate change for all the non-believers out there. #ClimateChangeBeliever. For all I know, and from what I have read, climate change is real. And discussing about whether it is real or not with people that have done zero research on the topic is just taking our time away from preventing a crisis from happening. If you want to know how to reduce your carbon emissions, please subscribe to this channel. Also, if you want to know if I've uploaded a new video, please click the notification bell. If you do that, I will eat a full spoon of hot chili sauce. You don't believe me? Well, let me get that. Ooh, fuck. Come on, subscribe. Click the notification bell. You've done that? Okay. All right. Okay. Okay. All right. Okay. Okay. All right.